We're in Belgium once again for today's round of the Formula One World Championship. It's a race the great Ayrton Senna won 6 times, and in 2019, Charles Leclerc became the first driver to take their maiden win here since Michael Schumacher in 1992. So here we are once again, ready to go racing through the Ardennes forest. 4.35 miles of long straights, fast corners, and massive elevation changes. It makes this not only one of the most exciting circuits on the calendar, but one that makes for some consistently high-quality racing as well. Simply put it, there really is no place quite like Spa. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today. But I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
From the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the run down into turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course, you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you, so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Perez, Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Leclerc, Stroll, Vettel, Russell, and Daniel Ricciardo. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Gasly, Giovinazzi, Carlos Sainz, and Mick Schumacher, Fernando Alonso, Raikkonen, the owner driver, and Esteban Ocon, Tsunoda, Latifi, Mazepin, and Robert Schwartzman. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today it is the Belgian Grand Prix here in my Team Career Mode Season 2. Of course, in yesterday's video, it was a very intense qualifying. If you haven't watched that, you might want to watch that now, because that was a very exciting Q2, I've got to say. It was a bit frustrating for us to be knocked out in Q2, of course, but it's going to give us hopefully a really interesting one today, because we're going to be able to start on fresh tyres, and we're not going to have to start on used tyres, because really, in terms of where our pace could have been, maybe we'd have been able to sneak through to Q3 and get P9 or 10, but there's the downside of starting further back on used tyres. So we do get fresh tyres. A bit frustrating to be knocked out P11, but a very intense end to Q2. We are taking grid penalties, though, as you can see, which means we're quite a way down the grid at the moment. Mechanics there, but of course, further in front, you can see the likes of the Haas, Alfa Romeos, and various different teams that are slower than us in qualifying. So we've got a lot of work to do today, and it's going to be a very interesting race. We're going to start off with it being nice and dry, maybe a bit of sunshine at points, but then the race finishes with light rain and then heavy rain. So quite likely we'll be on the inters by the end, but I don't think starting on the hards and then going on to inters at the end is really going to work. There's going to be a lot of tyre degradation on the hard tyres. Let me see if I can choose the hards first. Let's pretend it's softs, but we can actually make it. Look at the tyre degradation on the hards, though. What we're looking at, if we were to go to probably about, judging on where the weather is, probably about lap 17, 16, what you're looking at is quite a high amount of tyre wear, and you're going to be a lot slower than the other car. So I think the plan has got to be starting on soft tyres. We want a good start. We need to gain places. Then we'll probably end up going on to the mediums until it is time for the wet tyres. Quite warm at the moment in terms of the air, despite the rain looming over us here today at Spa. It should be a really interesting one. Before we begin, though, it's time to have a little look at what is quite a penalty-affected grid. Having a look at the grid then, we are starting all the way down there in P17 with 2 component changes, which equals a 10-place grid drop. We qualified P11, but others have taken penalties too, so we only have to go down to P17. But that is an awful lot of work for us to do to get back up into the top 10. We might lead the championship at the moment, but only by 16 points, I do believe. And our championship rival, Checo, is up there in P3. Looking at the top of it, though, Merckx, P1 and 2, a front row lockout for them. Not really surprising, is it? Of course, Mercedes with a better car heading into this weekend, so you'd expect them to be quicker than the Red Bulls. They have that better car, which means they are P1 and 2 on the grid. However, the Red Bulls will be really getting into that fight in the race. It is Bottas who leads Hamilton. No surprises there. Bottas looking to regain a comfortable lead on his teammate after that frustrating mechanical failure last time out at Hungary. But then Perez, P3 ahead of Verstappen, P4. This is pivotal. Perez needs to finish on the podium, really, today, if he wants to be rivaling us towards the end of the season, because it is Mexico next after this. And to be honest, I think we might have very, very similar pace there. Maybe even a little bit more for us. We won there last season, so we could really be in the mix for that one. And those guys haven't taken that many grid penalties yet. So Checo needs a good result today. Starting P3, he'll be able to fight forward at the Merckx. And of course, with his teammate behind, that could be helpful. Or also maybe a little bit of a nuisance if Verstappen managed to get in front. And of course, Verstappen P4. Difficult race last time out for him, fighting up the field with those grid penalties he decided to take for component changes. So today, Max has got to get some decent points, especially on the likes of Bottas and Hamilton. But in terms of the championship, Perez needs to be getting good result today, taking a comfortable amount of points on ourselves, with us being a lot further down the field. Hamilton and Bottas, those two, along with Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, they all need a great result here today, because 3 rounds left, including this one. They're so far behind, the 3 of them, that they're probably not going to be able to compete in the championship when we get to Jeddah at the season finale. So looking at it, Bottas, Hamilton and Verstappen need a stunner of a result here today. You need a win, and that might just pull you back into it for the end of the season. Then P5, Norris ahead of Leclerc. The McLaren's looking a bit stronger this weekend. Norris off the back of the podium last time out. He'll be looking for some good points ahead of Charles Leclerc. So the McLaren's looking strong round here at Spa. It could be a difficult one for Charles in his Ferrari to try and stay with Lando. But of course, those two are probably going to be fighting in this one. McLaren with the upper hand, and Norris looking to catch up to Leclerc in the championship. Lance Stroll and Seb Vettel, they'll be searching for some very good points. They're already in a nice position in the championship, and they can maybe have a little bit of a lead over the likes of Sainz and Ricciardo by the end of today's race. P7 for Stroll, P8 for Vettel, the old teammates now, Stroll and AlphaTauri. But those two in a great position thanks to others' grid penalties on fresh softs. They'll be able to really be quite a competitor for points today. Williams, George Russell going for something a bit different. Only 2 drivers choosing the medium tyres, and that's both of the Williams. Interesting strategy there. Maybe going to go for mediums to softs and then to the lovely wet tyres at the end of the race. But George Russell P9 in his Williams. That's a tasty position to start in for him. It could be a difficult one, though, I've got to say. Could be a difficult one to stay there. Got faster cars like Ricciardo, Gasly and Sainz charging from behind. He's going to need to play the strategy perfectly if he wants Williams' first points of the season. Then Daniel Ricciardo, though, P10, thanks to grid penalties with Sainz. P13, thanks to grid penalties. Those two are going to be losing quite a lot to Norris and Leclerc, so watch for those two charging through the field, but they can't afford to lose any more to their teammates in the championship. So pivotal one for them today. And also not to lose out to Stroll and Vettel. Watch out for Gasly in his AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri looking to still fight with McLaren. And if Stroll can fight Norris and Gasly can take on Ricciardo, there's a chance of AlphaTauri keeping those hopes alive. Giovinazzi scored points last time out. Starting P12 for him. If there's any disasters in front, don't count him out. Decent pace, and he has got some maybe a bit of slower cars behind Carlos with Schumacher and Kimi there. So Giovinazzi, he'll be looking to try and defend P12. I'd like to see him do that, certainly, but of course Carlos will be looking to charge through to his teammate to try and catch up to him a bit in the championship. Mick Schumacher, promoted to P14. Wouldn't rule him out of a very decent result today in his Haas. It's a really uncompetitive car like the Williams, but don't rule him out. He could have a decent chance. Alonso, what a shame. He's made it through to Q3 twice in a row, and he's taken grid penalties again. So, Fernando, don't count him out. But that's going to be quite a difficult mountain to climb if he wants to come and take some points today here at Spa. And I certainly think there'll be a lot of them mountain-like areas to climb with the elevation change here today. But Fernando, P15, so frustrating. Just don't take the grid penalties when you qualify in the top 10, Fernando. Plan ahead, mate. I know the AI can't do that, but frustrating. Then, just in front of us, Kimi Raikkonen. A poor quali for him, but does get promoted up to P16. The grid penalty's a bit of a lifesaver, but he's going to struggle to try and stay there with ourselves. A lot of work to do. Definitely trying to just move towards the points. Even 1 or 2 could be pivotal at the end of the season, so we've got a lot of work to do today. But some slower cars like Raikkonen and Schumacher, Giovinazzi a bit further in front. Then Ocon and Tsunoda both taking grid penalties. I do believe they both took grid penalties in the last time out and fought up the field together, but struggled in those wet conditions. So, hopefully Yuki might be able to travel up the field with me a little bit today. Love it if we could work together as teammates for this one. But Ocon in between us. The Alpine looking a lot stronger this race weekend. He'll be fighting forward. Watch out for Yuki too. Then Latifi and Mazepin, P20 and P21. Latifi starting on the mediums, a bit of a risky strategy, but when you're back there, that could actually work if he's on to the softer softs. Bit weird to say. Softer softs at the end of the Grand Prix. Could have the advantage then before the wet tyre running. But P20 for him ahead of Mazepin, 21 on the grid. 22 is Robert Schwartzman, his fellow countryman, just in front. Robert in the Aston Martin. He's not having a fantastic time this season and qualified poorly once again. Grid penalties drop him to the back. Can't really see him fighting forward too much, but plenty to watch in this one. Can we make progress? You've got Carlos needing to make progress. Ricciardo. What about Russell, Vettel and Stroll up there in the top 10? Then, of course, Leclerc and Norris in their pivotal fight up top. The Mercs versus the Red Bulls, and then watch out for our rival Perez. Plenty of action set for this one. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But it's time for the Belgian Grand Prix. Last season, we managed to take points. Here we were P10, I do believe. Yuki Tsunoda finished in front. And today, we start on the grid a bit further back, P17, with Tsunoda, my teammate, down there in P19. 5 red lights. They're out, and away we go for the Belgian GP. Great start for Alonso, poor one for Sainz. Into turn 1, we head. Late on the brakes, as always, into the lovely hairpin. A bit slow on exit. Out front, looks like a poor start for Hamilton. Already behind an Alpha Tauri, I do believe. Ricciardo versus Russell in front, side by side, through Eau Rouge and Radion. We have got a charging Alfa Romeo of Antonio Giovinazzi right onto us. Russell is boxing him in though, and we're going to be able to charge forward past both of them. What a start to the Belgian Grand Prix here, and we are right on the edge of the points. 3 wide behind, and it results in Russell dropping back to P14. Charles Leclerc not the best of starts. P8 for him. Lando Norris in front. Then it is Hamilton and Alpha Tauri up into the podium positions. That is a Lance Stroll. So what a start to the Belgian Grand Prix here. I think the Red Bull has cleared him. So, wow. Yeah, basically, what a start to the Belgian Grand Prix. Plenty of action. Sainz not making much progress. Back there, it is Ricciardo in front, being held up a little bit by Pierre Gasly. Charles Leclerc behind Seb Vettel. So, as I've said, not the best of starts for him. Quite a break between the leading Merc and then the Red Bull. Back to the other Red Bull. And I think it's Hamilton still behind Lance Stroll here. Both AlphaTauris in the points. And now we can charge at the Honey Badger, Daniel Ricciardo. This is for points here. What a start to the Belgian GP for us. Down the inside line into the bus stop chicane. Forced to get it slowed down so we don't go into the back of Pierre Gasly. Some great racing. Bottas leads the race here for Mercedes. It's going to be side by side with the McLaren of Ricciardo all the way into turn 1, and the sun is coming out on lap number 2 for us, and we are up into the points from right down at the bottom of the grid in P17 up into the points. It's Gasly in front. What a way to start the Belgian Grand Prix. 22 laps of this, and I'm really enjoying it so far. Once again in replay mode, we start to P17 all the way back there. My teammate behind Perez got away really nicely into turn 1, already got the position on Lewis Hamilton, then he lost out to Lance Stroll, sending it down the inside line. We were then fighting all the way along to Eau Rouge. We got ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi, then just in front Daniel Ricciardo versus the Williams of George Russell. What a battle there. We then went through to right charge at George Russell, but side by side at the same time with Antonio Giovinazzi. He then tried to go down the inside line. We had a lovely 3-wide moment there. We managed to get in front. Then Alonso comes sweeping through. Back there, Sainz making progress on Mick Schumacher. Plenty of action. Daniel Ricciardo on the back of Pierre Gasly. Leclerc losing out to Seb Vettel and Norris. Just behind Lewis Hamilton as Max Verstappen into no-name corner dives in front of Stroll to retake P3, which you earn off the start. A pole 1 for Lewis Hamilton, though, down to P5 from second. Then Verstappen P3, Perez P2 gaining a position, and Bottas in P1. Wow, what an exciting start to this Grand Prix there. Verstappen, though, starting to bridge the gap back to his teammate Stroll, holding up Hamilton, of course. Plenty of action, I'm sure, in this Belgian Grand Prix will ensue. Fantastic track to drive. And, of course, with the DRS zone heading into the second sector, it's going to create some fantastic racing action. But end of lap number 1, as there's the replay of ourselves versus Daniel Ricciardo, we sit in a very tasty position. Lap number 3 here, and we are really chasing down Pierre Gasly into Eau Rouge and Radion. We've looked close to him, trying to battle him through the bus stop on lap number 2, and we just keep the car going round there. Don't lose it. That's the move done. We've dropped a bit away from Seb Vettel, and Charles Leclerc are now further back. Ricciardo looking for the final points position, and by us getting up into P9, it means that we will lead, as it stands, the championship by 1 point. From Checo Perez heading into Mexico. It is looking close, but wow, lovely fight into Eau Rouge and Radion. As I said, we managed to get a bit of a close fight at the end of lap number 2 into the bus stop chicane, and then into the hairpin at the start of the lap. But a really great start to this race. P9 now, and it is Charles Leclerc in front. He's still close to us, thanks to a rather struggling Seb Vettel in comparison to the McLaren of Norris. He's absolutely flying on the back of Lewis Hamilton. Then, of course, you've got Max Verstappen, who has lost out to Lance Stroll once again. That's taking them out the equation from the front 2, and we are blisteringly quick in Sector 3 here. Look how much more traction we have. The chassis may be helping a little bit. We're going to have a look at ascend on Charles Leclerc. Not really close enough there, and oh my days. You can see we've got a warning there. I'm just glad to have the car in the right direction. Dear, oh dear, that got slippery at the bush stop chicane last lap. But on to lap number 4, and we sit in P9. Here's a replay of Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen on lap number 3. And look at this, Verstappen really struggling for pace, and Stroll gliding through back into the podium position. Fantastic work from him in his AlphaTauri. He's now back up into P3, and Verstappen dropping back to him is really struggling for pace. It's then Hamilton just behind. It is lap number 5, and questions have to be asked already about Max Verstappen, because a train is forming. Vettel's caught up to it. We're catching up to it, chasing down Leclerc at the same time too. We're going to be able to go for the move on him, but look at the gap from Verstappen all the way in front to a slower AlphaTauri, and Charles Leclerc giving us a great run for our money, but we do manage to get the move on him. That is now P8 for ourselves, and we are increasing the amount of points we would get. I think that's 4 points you get for P8, improving it second by second, but Verstappen looks like he's struggling. Look at the gap that Stroll has pulled on him. We are bringing it in now to the pits, and we're just getting past Seb Vettel there, actually, into the bus stop chicane. Lovely move on him there. That won't matter too much. The deeds are going to be done in the pit stops. How quick are we going to be? We're going to get held up by others. You've got the Mercs, the Red Bulls in. You see the Ferraris down the pit lane over here. We have to get all the way to the end. Charles Leclerc goes quickest. He's already crossed the line. Mediums are on. It's a reasonably quick stop for us. We actually come out just behind Max Verstappen. Where is everyone else? Miles in front, in fact. That's Lando Norris, who's trying to come steaming through. He is going to go side by side with us. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Still side by side through Uruj and Radion, and whoa, he's coming right back at us. He's on the hards, not the quickest of tyres. Verstappen just in front. We're going to be forced to dive bomb him a little bit there, just to be able to stay ahead of Lando Norris, and we can't do that. Still going to keep an overlap on Lando, as always, through here at Spa. Side-by-side racing action. We're in front of Lando Norris here. In terms of the order, we do sit down in P12, though, in this one. Norris is ahead of Ricciardo. The field a bit all over the place. I think Charles Leclerc's miles in front, I do believe now. Or is that Carlos Sainz? Not entirely sure which one, or is that Charles Leclerc further back? Probably is going to be Carlos Sainz. The order is very much shaken up at this point. We are behind Verstappen, so it hasn't gone too badly. Hamilton way in front now, P10. Just wait a second, where is Mr. Lance Stroll on the mini-map? He is currently behind the Red Bull, and now pit stops for the leader, Valtteri Bottas. Expect everyone else to come in, because of course, you know, people are starting to come in now onto the mediums. I don't want to be on the hards at all. That's certainly not a good idea, I don't think, from those runners. Schwartzman is one of those in. Who is going to lead the race? A pivotal point, potentially, in the championship. And it is Valtteri Bottas. Is he going to keep it? This is the question. We are down a P9, so it certainly hasn't gone smoothly. I think the Williams, though, is in front on the mediums. And Alpines there, don't know how they've got there, but it is Valtteri Bottas in front of Checo Perez here. And our car, very slippery through Eau Rouge at the moment. And then into Radion, and I think the Ferrari is going to get ahead of the Williams, I do believe it is. No real surprises there, but catching on to Verstappen on lap number 10. Well, we are now going to fight Max Verstappen. Similar cars in the R&D. Verstappen really struggling today. We get the move done. Don't even have to take it up to the bus stop chicane.
Brilliant. Nice move.
Just so we all know, I did make a bit of a mistake as George Russell and Hamilton fight in front, and Russell comes into the pits off his mediums. That's going to promote us up into P7. Alonso still out there on his softs, but basically I did make a little bit of a mistake in terms of who's where. The Ferrari out there is Charles Leclerc. He is up in P4. Fantastic work from him. Then, of course, it is Alonso who's... I don't know if he's pitted or not, actually, because he is on the softs. I think Leclerc's actually on the softs at the moment. But we are P7, up there now on lap 11, with rain looming a little later. Verstappen does have DRS, but won't get close enough to be able to challenge us. It is lap 11. Let's have a little refresh of the order. Valtteri Bottas continues to lead Sergio Perez after their pit stops. Perez is on the hards. Bottas on quite a more normal tyre to choose when you're going to have to pit again in this one. He sits on the yellow marked medium. So Bottas ahead of Checo in this one. Checo within DRS but can't really find a move. Then Lance Stroll sits pretty comfortably in P3. It is Charles Leclerc up to P4, pitting a bit earlier there. He is on the softs though, so he's going to struggle to keep those going until we get the wet weather conditions. Similarly for Fernando Alonso, who's up to P5. Great work from him from outside the points, but similarly he's going to have a bit of work to do with keeping those softs good until later in this one, unless they're going to have an extra pit stop, which is going to be rather costly, I've got to say. Then it is Lewis Hamilton, P6 in his Merc. Dropped a bit further down the field, but is on the more durable mediums. Of course, we will have an advantage on the soft runners in front when their tyres start to wear out. But P6 in the Merc ahead of ourselves in P7 as we run a little bit wide there, being chased down by Max Verstappen, who has also chosen the medium tyres. He is in the Red Bull. Then the two McLarens rounding out the points. You've got Norris ahead of Ricciardo, those two running well, with Pierre Gasly just outside of the points on the hards. In P11 goes nicely with the black and white of his car. Seb Vettel on the fringe of the points still. P12 for him, ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi, who leads a bit of a train, it seems here. Carlos Sainz can't get through it and is losing a bit of precious time as further back it is Esteban Ocon ahead of Nicholas Latifi, who now boxes for fresh tyres. My teammate Yuki up to P15. Great progress for him. Sainz still not getting past Giovinazzi though. Ocon P16, Raikkonen P17, Latifi's into the pit, so Robert Schwartzman will take P18, now ahead of George Russell, Mick Schumacher, Nicholas Latifi, who's boxing, and then Nikita Mazepin rounds out the field. I'm starting to question Leclerc's strategy here. Him and Alonso are in off the softs. That's not the best of strategies because the rain is going to be coming, and we're up to P5. Stroll now sits comfortably in that podium position. It is still low. Verstappen chasing us. If we can keep it nice and clean at the moment, he's going to probably have a little bit of a look into the end of this straight. Is he? Yes, he is actually going to have a little bit of a look. We're going to just fend him off, try and shut the door a little bit. No, we can't, but we do get the move done. Well, get the move closed off, and we managed to remain in P5. Leclerc now way down the order, a bit closer to his teammate, and Alonso equally so for him. So those guys pretty much played themselves out of this one. As it starts to get a bit darker, it's not going to be too long in this one until we get a fit on a set of intermediate tyres. Jeff has just told me that we're expecting rain to arrive at any moment, which certainly isn't something that I don't think we need for ourselves in this one, because, to be honest, we are running very happily in these dry conditions, just defending from Max Verstappen. As I say that, we get a little bit pear-shaped into turn one. Yes, the gap to Hamilton is increasing in front, but to be honest, we are pretty comfortable in this one. We do, though, have Verstappen, Norris, Ricciardo, and then Pierre Gasly behind. Now Verstappen is looking for P5. This time he launches a really decent attack, takes it over the curb. We get very, very slippery through that section. It's going to cost us time to the cars in front, but to be honest, that is not our race. We are defending from what is really faster Red Bull. I mean, the car itself isn't really that much faster. The driver in it, Verstappen, a bit faster than us this weekend. Some rain we're seeing. Yes, we've got droplets of rain coming down. It's a long track is Spa, so it could be next lap or the lap after when we dip into wet tyres. Well, the intermediates, of course, but it is raining here in Spa. Grip is going to decrease. Pivotal moments in this GP. Verstappen having a look at trying to get past us once again. Gets a bit of an overlap, but we managed just about to get enough traction. These mediums are perfectly fine in terms of the wear. However, Eau Rouge and Radeon, I'm not taking that flat at all, and that's going to give Verstappen an advantage. He's now got DRS still enabled despite the rain coming down. We're going to force him to the inside line. Don't want to be going on that curb, do you, in these slippery conditions? And he almost backs off, acknowledging it. Yellow flags are out, and surely not. Yes, Valtteri Bottas is having a mechanical failure. It happened last time out at Hungary. while he was leading the race, and it's happened again.
Yellow flag.
Verstappen still behind us, but Valtteri, he's parked it, has he? I think he has. Valtteri Bottas, for the second GP in a row, is out thanks to a mechanical failure. And that now means that Lance Stroll is P2 and Checo leads the race. What drama here. Lap 17 out of 22. It is really starting to come down. Don't think it's quite ready just yet for the intermediate tyres, but it certainly is drizzling. Spa is not a short circuit, and within a couple of laps of rain, it is certainly time for the intermediate corners like this becoming even more treacherous by the minute. There might not be that much time left in this GP, but it's certainly time for the intermediate tyres. And wait, people are staying out. Surely not going to... You can't go to the end in these conditions. I'm sorry, but it is way too slippery out on track at the moment to be staying out in these conditions. I know some of the back markers towards the backside of the pit, but I'm sure Inters are the way to go. It is starting to get a bit worse and a bit worse minute by minute on this track. You can see the rain's coming down. We are out of the pit. The Inters are on. Apparently there has been an incident on track, but no safety car right now. Definitely looking like Inters weather when you look at the track. Yes, Raikkonen is charging at us. That's generally because he's got DRS, but also because if you do have a look at the moment, it isn't as wet as it will be by the time we finish the middle sector here. The track, though, very, very slippery. We are struggling to try and find where any sort of grip is at the moment. No way he's sending it down the inside line of us there. That is a tad reckless. I can't see the AI staying out in this, though. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Hopefully, though, we haven't made a tactical mistake, but there is not long left in this one. So the AI are quite reluctant generally to pit late in it. Of course, after this lap, just 3 to go. Who is going to pit? As I think that's Lewis Hamilton right onto the back of Lance Stroll. I cannot believe DRS is still enabled in these conditions. And it is getting very, very messy. Raikkonen early coming back through. Oh dear. We are probably going to lose out to Verstappen and so on because of this very, very scruffy lap. Some of them are in, but it looks like Stroll and Hamilton are staying out. Surely they're not going to the end in these conditions. That would be a really, really stupid mistake because you can see how wet it is out on track at this point in the GP. We are going to see where we filter out after that very, very, very messy out lap. We're certainly not really gelling to these conditions. Good job DRS is disabled. And look at this. It has gone very, very wrong for us. Where are we in the order? The conditions changing did not play into our hands last time out, and it has not done the same today. Down to P12, and I know some drivers have decided to stay out, which somehow bezazzles me, but Gasly in front, he's jumped us, so has Lando Norris. Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen, I do believe, staying out, so some very interesting strategies here. Surely people are not going to stay out until the end. It is too slippery, but really, if they pit, we should be able to gain the position, hopefully, on a couple of them. And if they don't pit, then we'll probably be able to get past them as they're trundling around incredibly slowly on out-of-position slicks. But lap 20 out of 21, and once again, changeable conditions not playing into our hands like it did, of course, at Hungary last time out. It seems that everyone has realised it is just too wet to be staying out. I think Alonso is still in the mediums. He is he staying? He's staying out here. Fernando Alonso is staying out on medium tyres. Ocon has pitted. And, oh dear, we're going a bit slowly into him there. Charles Leclerc, I don't think, has pitted. Some terrible strategic decisions. Side by side now with Fernando Alonso. We're going to get the move done. We're going to come charging back up the order, thanks to others making terrible strategic decisions. And he's running all the way off there. And he's lost it. He's lost it. Fernando Alonso has lost it. I don't think that's partially because of us. but we went side by side through that section, no contact made, and Fernando Alonso, staying out on very unsuitable tyres, has absolutely lost it. We are ahead of Verstappen and Vettel as Leclerc opens the door, slams it shut. He should not be on these tyres. He really, really should not be on these tyres. And we could end up losing out to Verstappen. A little bit of a tap on the back of him. Not much I could do there. Charles Leclerc, very much a sitting duck here. And it does look like Stroll's going to try and hang on for a podium. Let's have a little look at what happened once again with the Alonso incident. He's almost slick tyres in these conditions. We try to rival him into Eau Rouge. No real point fighting us here. We go side by side. I think he's caught my rear wheel. Oh, and he's gone over the curb and he's just spun it. Oh, he's lucky not to collect anyone. My teammate Yuki nearly collects him. Thankfully, doesn't go off into a wall. He's going to manage to have to reverse round and then get back onto the track. Now he's going to wait for Carlos Sainz. Be a bit polite there. Have to wait for his teammate too. Giovinazzi finally gets back going. That is very, very costly. We'll see it from a different angle on board with him as he just brushes next to Kimi Räikkönen. A real shame Fernando's on board with Fernando Alonso in front. Charles Leclerc versus Pierre Gasly. Leclerc on those slicks like Alonso. You can see heading through Eau Rouge into Radion. Gets a bit of a clip on us. Tries to slow it down. Oh, and he's just spun going back onto the track. Lucky not to hit anyone there. Manages to avoid everyone, but wow. A little bit my fault there, but generally I think just rejoining onto the track. He's lost it on those mediums. You can see how much water it's kicking up. He should really have pitted onto the intermediate tyres. Not a good decision from Fernando Alonso in this one. Verstappen now having a look at us. Gosh, there couldn't be more action. That's P6 gone. We're down to P7. Vettel's going to have a look. Look, my teammate is in P9. Great drive from him. But I don't know where Charles Leclerc has gone, but he's gone a long way down the order. Poor strategies proving quite costly here. Alonso went off into the wall. Meanwhile, all this is happening. My championship rival, Checo Perez, is set to win with a fantastic drive. He won here last season. That was at the start of a little run of dominance. And wow, you need to catch a break. AlphaTauri looking great here with a podium position for Lance Stroll. And Gasly up in P5. We get very, very close with Seb Vettel. And now Yuki Tsunoda, my teammate, comes through. Plenty of action here. Charles Leclerc finally pits. I can't remember what just happened then. Someone said the fastest lap of the race. And now we are really struggling for grip. No pace for ourselves. I'm not going to fight Yuki Tsunoda, my teammate. He comes through. Lap 22 out of 22, the final lap here, and we are still on the intermediates. It's coming down more heavily. Vettel is now chasing us down. I think Alonso's into the pits. Yuki still in front. I don't want to fight him too much. We are teammates, of course, but we are actually going to get pretty close to be able to fight him a little bit. Just want to stay ahead of Seb Vettel here. Ricciardo with the last points positions. Ferrari won't even score today with what was a shambles of a decision regarding Charles Leclerc's tyres. He should have come into the pits. Really should have come into the pits. Struggling around Alonso. Wow, what an incident there. Gosh, this has been a jam-packed Grand Prix with action. Stroll's looking like he's going to take a podium. Championship status.
Couldn't receive that. Repeat the message.
Come on, Jeff. Championship status.
Repeat that. There's interference.
Championship status.
As things stand,
Thank you,
we'll
Jeff.
be second in the championship.
We will be second, so Perez is going to take the lead of the championship here. We are really struggling for any sort of grip. We need to stay ahead of Vettel. A bit of damage limitation late on here. What a Grand Prix it has been. Sergio Perez is going to win this dry to wet race, and it is going to be Hamilton P2 after his win last time out. Then we're looking a bit further down the field. Stroll's going to take a podium from Lando Norris. Then it's Pierre Gasly, Max Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda, myself just about. We're going to come home to finish ahead of Vettel and then Ricciardo. What a Grand Prix.
What a great race then, and what a magnificent victory here at the Belgium Grand Prix. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Well, they clearly have a car that comes alive in the kind of conditions we were dealing with today. It's a very balanced package in the wet, and what that means is that the drivers have confidence to attack. And having that confidence gets you on the power earlier, it lets you brake later, and can put you a long way up the road.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everyone at the team.
With quite interesting changeable conditions, I've got to say. The opposite of Hungary. That was dry late on. Today we ended up fitting the inters for the last few laps, but once again maybe the wet weather not playing into our hands. Last time the wet weather was absolutely mint at Hungary. In the dry we certainly struggled for the pace. Today it was a bit of the opposite, and P8 at the flag from 17th is a very decent recovery drive. A little bit of a shame though, considering where we were, of course, before pitting for the intermediate tyres. 4 points though is not too bad of a result at all. We needed points today, considering we were starting P17. 1 or 2 was certainly the target at the start of it, but 4 in the end is a decent result. Frustratingly for us though, Checo Perez is the man to win. 25 points for the Mexican. Not the fastest lap in there, that went to Charles Leclerc, but of course Checo, fantastic drive. Would have been a bit of a battle with Valtteri. In fact, Valtteri might even have finished ahead of him by the end of the race, but in 40 minutes of racing action, Checo Perez is the victor here today in his Red Bull. And that is absolutely pivotal for the championship. 25 points, of course, means that I think he's going to be ahead of us. We'll have a check at the standings in a second. I think he'll definitely be ahead of us. I'm not sure by how many points, but Checo in the Red Bull is looking very decent heading into the final 2 rounds of the season. Lewis Hamilton takes P2, benefiting from his teammate not finishing again thanks to reliability issues. Lewis once again on the podium, and 18 points is going to put him comfortably ahead of his teammate. Might even launch him past the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. A solid drive from Lewis there. A poor start, a really poor start, but he fought back into a good position and in the end takes some decent points. Lance Stroll on the podium for the second time this season. Got a P2 after losing P1 to us on the last lap at the Spanish Grand Prix. But an absolutely fantastic drive from 7th. Got up into P3 on the first lap and then fought with Verstappen a little bit. He certainly struggled today, but Lance Stroll with a stunner of a drive there. Well deserving of those 15 points. Only a couple of seconds behind a much faster Mercedes, so a great drive from the Canadian. His teammate, equally so, down there in P5, but in between them, Lando Norris, not quite the podium he got last time out, but P4, another 12 points to his tally, right behind Stroll. In the end, couldn't get through in the conditions, of course, but fantastic work from Lando after a dismal start to this season. Gasly, P5, outscored by his teammate once again, despite having the better pace in qualifying. I was about to say in the race, but actually Stroll's best lap was a little bit quicker than Pierre. A great drive from P11 to take 10 points, and a very strong showing from AlphaTauri. 25 for them compared to just 13 for McLaren. And that drive from Pierre, really great one from P11. The drive from Stroll, even more fantastic considering he takes a podium. Great work from AlphaTauri this weekend. They'll be looking to continue that form into Mexico. Max Verstappen, 2 races where he doesn't get a podium finish. P6 today and only 8 points. We held him up a bit in the dry conditions. Couldn't fight forward to the sister cars of the AlphaTauris, and he's going to take a massive hit compared to his teammate and also the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton this weekend. So Max Verstappen in the Red Bull is going to sit P6 on the standings at the end of today's race, and he'll be heading towards P6 in the drivers. I do believe that'll be about P4 for him at the moment, but it was a bit of a disappointing drive, I've got to say, from Max Verstappen, and I think it was generally just the problem. He seems to have a bit of a problem early on in the race, and seems to be something sort of mechanical, really slowed him down. In the end, finishes P6, and another just not that great Grand Prix for him. A good one for Yuki, though. I love to see that sort of a drive. P19 to P7, and 6 points to add to my 4 to make it 10 for the team. Great to see Yuki with a fantastic drive. It was consistent throughout the race, kept gaining positions. We got the strategy perfect for him at the team on the pit wall. P7 in the end, and an absolutely fantastic drive from him. Got to love it. 6 points. We take 4, and it was a bit of a race of two halves for us, like it was at Hungary. First half, really decent first half in the dry conditions. We were going pretty nicely, looking on for potentially even a top 5 finish, but then of course in the wet conditions it started to unravel a little bit. As I said, yeah, a race of two halves. Overall, not too bad. Our best lap was actually identical to Perez, so that's quite interesting there, but overall it's a good result considering we went from 17th. 4 points, damage limitation. Now we can go and push into Mexico. Seb Vettel with 9 points on the board in his Aston Martin. Lovely drive, I was saying. I think in the quali video yesterday, he hasn't scored for a while. A bit of a patch of poor quali results and race results, but now 2 points on the board for the German. Yes, started P8, but with faster cars charging through, that is a very solid result and a confidence-boosting one in his Aston Martin. So P9 there for him, followed by Daniel Ricciardo, who started P10 and finished P10. Could have tried to go on forward, but it just wasn't really to be. It was a fairly mediocre Grand Prix for him. Could have gone a lot better. Could have gone an awful lot worse, as we've seen in the case of Charles Leclerc, but there, for Daniel Ricciardo, it's a point. It's disappointing. A lot less than his teammate, and he could probably have fought up into the top 8. But in the end, P10 for Danny Rick, rounding out the points. And then no points for Ferrari at all. Charles Leclerc started P5? 6 it was, not P5. That's Lando Norris who started P5. Started P6, failed to take points. You might have thought that Carlos Sainz, starting P13, might have managed to take points. Well, your answer to that is no. Carlos, P11 at the flag. Started P13, made progress, but a poor start meant he had a lot more work to do in terms of overtaking. And P11 at the flag means Ferrari walk away without points this weekend. That could be pivotal for Carlos in the championship. Esteban in his Alpine, P12. That's a confidence-boosting result there from P18. Great drive from him. Love to see it in the Alpine at the flag. Antonio Giovinazzi only lost 1 position in that relatively slow Alfa Romeo, down to P13 at the flag, but another great drive from him. Also though from Kimi, a poor quali, then helped by grid penalties and moves up to P14 to be just about 5-ish seconds behind his teammate there, so a great result for Kimi. Robert Schwartzman managed to improve from dead last on the grid. He finished P15, so overall not too bad of a result for him. Quite a bit off his teammate, but made some good progress. One man who didn't have a good race, though, was Charles Leclerc. He might have been the only man to get into the 1 minute 45s, but it all went wrong with the strategy. Shouldn't have stayed out on the mediums. It really costed him when he pitted onto the intermediates. He dropped down to P16. The strategy was not a good one. He shouldn't really have gone soft, medium, sorry, then onto the inters at the end. He should have gone soft mediums, then onto the Inters, and should have gone onto the Inters a lot quicker than he did. So overall, he had the pace this weekend, Charles, but threw it away with a poor strategy. Real shame for him and the team, but if you don't play the strategy right, the pace is pretty much irrelevant. George Russell, no surprises there, dropped down to P17 in that uncompetitive Williams. P9 on the grid, of course, helped by grid penalties, but then dropped down the field. Gave it a good go, and importantly for him, he finished ahead of Schumacher by 6 seconds. Schumacher started P14, dropped down the field as you'd expect, but a solid drive from him to finish above the 20th and 19th positions. Alonso P19, it was a bit of a interesting Grand Prix for him. He should have pitted when his teammate came in. They should have double stacked, taken the hit, but he didn't. He stayed out. He then had a little bit of a tap with us. Slightly my fault there, but then ended up trying to rejoin the track and lost it on slicks on a wet track, which never goes well. So Fernando Alonso in the Alpine, P19 in the end. A disappointing one. He's got the quali pace, but isn't really putting it together in the race today, of course. The strategy didn't work for him. Then Latifi and Mazepin stayed exactly where they started. Pretty boring race for those two, I've got to say, at the back. A little bit of a tussle between them, but not much really happened. Then, of course, Valtteri Bottas is going to be fuming at his Mercedes team. That is a very frustrating race for him. Started P1, was dominating the race, comfortably staying ahead of Perez. And I know the gap wasn't massive, but he wasn't troubled at any point by Checo. It was leading him to probably what would have been a win, but then Mercedes reliability means that he loses P1 twice thanks to a mechanical failure. Let's head over to the standings, and for the first time this season, Checo Perez in his Red Bull is the leader. He has a 5-point lead heading into his home Grand Prix. More changes a little bit further down the order too. P3 is now Lewis Hamilton with that fantastic P2. 35 points behind us. It's still mathematically possible for him and Verstappen. However, it's going to take an absolute miracle to try and take it, because 35 points, 52 available. It's going to be quite surprising if Lewis and Max manage to get into the mix for the title this season, but Lewis overtakes Max by 1 point. That's all still to play for in terms of P3. Bottas is mathematically out of the championship and will not retain his title on 74 points after 2 consecutive mechanical failures. That does mean he's also pretty much out of the battle for P3. What a shame. Not down to him, down to the reliability of that Mercedes engine. Lance Stroll up to P6 in his AlphaTauri. Can't see him really staying there until the end of the season, but if he did, that is absolutely fantastic. I was questioning AlphaTauri's decision to get him. However, it doesn't sound like too bad of a decision at this point. He is P6, benefiting off maybe starting a bit further back in the 2 stoppers versus the 1 stop at the start of the season, using that 1 stop to his advantage. And now, what a drive from him to take the podium. P6, 43 points. He's ahead of both Ferraris and both McLarens, and it is Lando Norris ahead of Charles Leclerc. Those two on 40 points, just behind Lance Stroll. These guys are all fighting for P6, basically a long train of cars, but Norris catching up to Leclerc, who doesn't score today with a tactical mistake, means those two are side by side in the championship heading into Mexico. Seb Vettel got some points on the board, wasn't enough to stay in P8, I do believe that would have been, but P9 at the moment for a really solid position to be in that Aston Martin. 33 points, only 7 behind Norris and Leclerc, and only 10 behind Stroll, so could still maybe fight with Stroll towards the end of the season for that battle with a good result in Mexico, and then of course into Jeddah. Gasly rounds out the top 10 in the order. He is now on 32 points, so a good result for him today, puts him just 1 point behind Seb Vettel. Quite a chunk behind his teammate Lance Stroll. 11 points that, and that is quite a bit. with the amount of points these guys have been scoring so far this season, in terms of like they're not scoring massive chunks because we've had 8 rounds and Stroll's got 43 and Norris has got 40. That's an average of 5 per race. So Gasly, a little bit of work to do to catch up to his teammate, but ahead of Carlos Sainz, who doesn't score today and sits 1 point behind the Frenchman. So those two very close there, but Gasly getting back ahead and looking strong maybe to split Norris and Leclerc, who are together, and then of course Carlos Sainz and Ricciardo. You don't know, we'll have to wait and see. Then Alonso down at P12 with that disastrous strategy today, 27 points for him, equal to my teammate Yuki, who has now got 27 too after that great point score today. Hopefully he might even be able to get in the mix with Vettel with some more points this season. Great work from him. He's ahead of a struggling Daniel Ricciardo. Only 1 point today means that he is 5 behind Carlos Sainz, 14 behind Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. Really struggling compared to the rest of that group is Ricciardo, and it's not looking too fantastic for much of an improvement. Top 10 looking a bit far away for him in this season. And Giovinazzi rounds out those guys who have scored. He has a point. In the Constructors, a little bit of a change around at the moment. Red Bull sit P1 with 222 points. Same top 3. They still sit ahead of Mercedes and comfortably ahead of Mercedes now. 54 points with 2 races to go. Yes, I know you can get 51 over another team in a race, but that gap at 54 points, it's looking comfortable for Red Bull, and it certainly looks like they are going to be taking the Constructors this season over Mercedes. We remain at P3, 71 points behind Red Bull. Not too far off Mercedes, however, it does certainly look like it is going to be a P3 for us, which is our target for this season, so really happy with that. And then the changes come. AlphaTauri not just ahead of McLaren, but ahead of Ferrari. Fantastic work from them this weekend, and they are now up to P4 on exactly 75 points. Ferrari down to P5, 4 behind, with McLaren down in P6, 5 behind Ferrari. So the gaps there, very, very small. AlphaTauri to McLaren, just 9 points. But, wow, that is extremely close in the upper midfield fight for P4. And actually, when you think about it, you don't know. AlphaTauri could potentially stay there. We'll have to wait and see with that one. But I wouldn't be surprised if Ferrari and McLaren come charging back through. But Ferrari's big leader McLaren has disintegrated, and AlphaTauri are looking very strong. Aston Martin are now 6 points ahead of Alpine. That's the battle for 7th. 6 points can be brought back, but still a reasonable lead when you're looking at Aston Martin and Alpine, who generally score minor points if they do get in the top 10. Alfa Romeo with a solitary point ahead of Williams and Haas, who are still yet to score. Well, it is looking spicy in the drivers heading into Mexico. Finally, a strong track for us in the second half of this season, but also Checo will be cheered on by the home fans. That's going to be very exciting. 5 points separating us heading into that. He, of course, does have the lead of the championship. Hamilton looking pretty much out of it with Verstappen there. Still got a glimmer of hope, but they'll be fighting for P3. Bottas out of it in terms of the championship, and then the large gaggle of cars from 6th to 14th that are separated by not much at all, I've got to say. Constructors, of course, AlphaTauri, Ferrari versus McLaren for P4. Red Bull looking strong for the win in that. What a Belgian Grand Prix then. Into the wet conditions. P17 to P8 for us. Give you a rundown of the top 10 once again. Perez, Hamilton, Stroll, Norris, Gasly, Verstappen, Tsunoda, ourselves, Vettel and Ricciardo. But it is all heating up for the final 2 races of the season. Checo has a 5-point lead. Bottas will not be keeping his title this season. All to play for at Mexico next time. Of course, that'll be quali before the race. But thanks a lot for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button if you haven't already. and subscribe to the channel. But it has been a very exciting Belgian Grand Prix weekend. Catch me next time on the channel as we head to Mexico.